Were you expecting someone else?
Hello mouses! It's winter here in England and that means rain. In fact, it's so wet here that fish have been climbing out of the rivers and trying to walk on land. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. I was having a discussion with people earlier in the week about friendships, and in particular about how the modern world has changed how we view our relationships with others. And one person, who shall remain nameless because I don't want to embarrass them by talking about them online, said to me, "Internet friends aren't real friends." So I said, "Are you kidding? Internet friends can be more real than real life friends." Now, if you've ever spent any time on the internet, and if you haven't, how are you watching this video? You'll have had a conversation like that at least once. And if you haven't had a conversation like that, just give it some time. It will happen, I guarantee it, because that train is never late. The idea that online friends are somehow not real is an increasingly ridiculous one. We spend, as a species, an ever-increasing amount of time on the internet. We use it for work, we use it for entertainment, and the increasing popularity of social media, as its name suggests, means that we spend an awful lot of time socialising. So I'm baffled by the idea that online friends can't be considered real friends. Speaking from personal experience here, my online friends are some of the most real friends that I've ever had. They like the same things as me. They share the same jokes as me. They speak the same language as me. And by that I mean the use of language, slang and other colloquialisms. The people who posit the argument that online friends aren't real friends always bring up this argument of, "Oh, but you've never met them." And at first glance that might seem true for some people, but here's the problem though. I have met some of my online friends. A lot of them, in fact. When I first got internet access at home in 1998, as opposed to what I used to do, which was go to cyber cafes or borrow a computer at the university, because I'm nothing if not a complete 90s nerd stereotype, I used to be a big fan of news groups. I hung out on places like Alt Fan Pratchett and an awful lot of computer groups. And I made an awful lot of friends in those groups. We talked for hours every day and became very close, and then one of the Old Fan Pratchett people suggested that we all go to this thing called the Clarecraft Discworld event, which was going to be held in southern England in a field. And when you're about 20 years old, you think, going to a field full of a lot of people, a long way from home, possibly with lots of people that I don't actually know, that sounds like a great idea. So of course I went, and I met an awful lot of my online friends for the first time in the real world. Now we had a great time, we talked a lot, and we got amazingly drunk to the point where we literally drank a bar dry, and at the end of the weekend we felt like we'd met each other and that we'd had a good time, but we didn't feel any more real to each other than before. We just happened to have met physically now, and that was the only real difference. Going to this event was a nice shared experience, I'll grant you that, but on the fundamental level, it changed nothing. All we'd done is share a physical space for a while. And it turns out that that really doesn't matter for friendships. Because what is it? It's a shared experience. But we had shared experiences all the time. We went on IRC together. And if you know IRC, you'll know that it's a real-time experience. It's a real-time exchange of information. And that's just like conversing, only in a text form. It's like, if you looked at Skype these days, you're having a conversation with people as if you're sat in the same room. There's no actual difference in terms of what your brain processes. The person is there, the person is real. That's all that matters. Because there's the thing, it turns out that you don't have to be physically close to be emotionally close. Now let's jump forward a couple of decades, because it turns out that the internet is an awful lot older than my brain wants to admit, and that makes me feel really, really old. Anyway, now it's the modern day and we have virtual worlds everywhere, so now you can share the same physical space without having to be right next to each other. It's an introvert's dream. For example, here's a picture of me dancing with someone I met on Second Life. It's a virtual world. He was in California, I was in Manchester, but we went dancing together at a club. It was a great night and we both had an awful lot of fun because you don't have to be in the same place to be entertained together. Here's a picture of me at a strategy meeting for the future expansion of a Star Trek online fleet, where we discussed the projects that we've all been working on. See that? Businesses and other organisations are able to get together and have a meeting without having to get together and have a meeting, but the end result is the same. And it also has the distinct advantage that you don't have to spend an hour or so on a train or an aircraft just to get to this meeting. And as a final example, here's a video of me with another person that I met online. We were having a conversation here about a book that she had just published. In all of these instances, we were as close as if we were actually physically in the same place. So how is that less real than if we'd actually had a physical conversation? The obvious answer is that it's not. Because it turns out that physical presence isn't necessary for friendships. And that's why you can have a good conversation with a family member on the telephone and it'll feel emotionally rewarding to you. You can get a letter from a friend or a family member and it'll feel emotionally rewarding to you because it doesn't matter that they're not physically there. And just before anyone jumps into the comments having completely misread what we're talking about here and says, oh well, you still don't know those people that you've met online. They could still be anyone. They could be. Or they could just be exactly like everyone else in the world. Do you really know the people around you? Well, a lot of the newspaper reports where everyone says, oh, they were so quiet or whatever, suggest that actually you don't. You have the same issue in the real world as you do online. The people that you meet could just be a facade. But here's the other thing. That woman that I was having a conversation with about her book, that's my wife. Because it turns out that online relationships can last for a long time. Anyway, that's all I've got time for today, so thank you very much for watching. I hope you did like this, and if you did, remember to click the like button. Share it with your friends so that they can see a good video too, and do subscribe for future videos because there will be more in the future. But until next time, I've been Zoe Kirk-Robinson, you've been watching the Nobmouse Show, and I'll see you next time.
Script.
Thank you.
That's what I've got to work with.
I can't remember what I'm supposed to write, it's words.